So it has been 20 years since the push for breaching dams to save salmon was gaining traction in the Pacific Northwest. But in the last few years, fish returns have taken a nosedive. As 6 on Your Side's Steve Liebenthal reports, conservation groups are once again pushing for changes to the river system.
Jerk that tight, cut the little tag ends off, snug it up real good.
3 years ago, Kerry Brennan turned his Riggins guide shop into a tackle shop.
Set your bob or stop.
It was his retirement plan after 30 years guiding anglers who wanted to catch salmon and steelhead. But his timing was not good. For the second year in a row, the fishing season is being cut short.
I'm standing above the confluence of the Salmon River and the Little Salmon River. In a normal salmon fishing season, this river would be lined with dozens of anglers trying to catch a spring Chinook salmon. But this is no normal year. There are very few fish and very few anglers willing to put in the effort to try to catch one.
This year's return of spring Chinook salmon from the Pacific Ocean is the worst this century. The result for river communities like Riggins is a major decrease in money spent by salmon anglers. Brennan agrees with conservation groups who say the main problem is poor migration conditions for juvenile salmon moving downstream through 8 dams on the Snake and Columbia rivers.
Power companies, the irrigators took what water there was. The migrating conditions were terrible for fish. Snake and Columbia, we lost most of our juveniles going out, so we're paying the price now.
Fish and game managers admit downstream migration is vital to salmon recovery, but they say the dramatic drop in return in recent years can be blamed on ocean warming.
You may have heard about the warm water blob that was essentially a big area off of the west coast near the mouth of the Columbia that was warmer than normal, and that fish being cold-blooded animals really are sensitive to temperature.
All of this comes at a time conservationists consider crucial for Idaho salmon. While enough hatchery fish are returning for a very limited fishing season, last year fewer than 6,000 federally protected wild Chinook salmon returned to Idaho. That's less than 10% of the goal for salmon recovery. And this year, a 10-year-old agreement called the Columbia Basin Fish Accords is set to expire. That agreement provided $900 million for salmon restoration projects throughout the Columbia Basin, including $69 million for Idaho. 3 states and most Northwest tribes agreed not to sue for additional fish protection at the dams. They also agreed not to advocate for the removal of 4 dams on the lower Snake River, an idea that had momentum in the late 90s after a panel of independent scientists said breaching the dams was the key to recovering Idaho's wild salmon runs. Now, the Otter administration is negotiating with the Bonneville Power administration to extend the accord. Meanwhile, diehard anglers like these will be back on the Little Salmon River, continuing to pound the water for at least 4 more days, hoping to hook a spring Chinook. On average, they're spending 33 hours fishing for every salmon they take home. And Kerry Brennan is trying to figure out how to pay for his roadside tackle shop that depends on money spent by salmon and steelhead anglers.
A big part of it was going to be the salmon season, and so therefore still haven't paid the remodel back yet.
Steve Liebenthal, 6 on Your Side.
Fish and Game has closed the spring Chinook season on the lower Salmon River. The summer Chinook season on the South Fork salmon opened Saturday. Managers expect that South Fork season, though, to be short-lived. If you do plan on fishing, it's a good idea to check the Fish and Game website for any updated closures.